So, we have heard a lot of rumours about E3 2022. We know that, well, it is going on now currently, but there has been rumours that it might be cancelled. And me and Senseless are going to talk about the longevity of E3 in general.
The future of E3. If there is a future.
I mean, yeah, exactly. That is literally the question. Is there a future for E3?
I think there is, but not as we know it at this point. I think at this point in time, E3 needs to change somehow, because the way it's going, I just find the whole thing irrelevant.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds harsh, but it kind of is, because all the developers, I mean, they can just stream it or do a live stream on YouTube or Twitch, and that's all you really need. Like, as long as those companies are putting it on social media, sharing it on IGN and like not GameStop, but GameSpot. What's the point? You know, what's the point of E3 really?
That's the thing, especially with developers, right? So E3 it usually goes out about June time, right, for a few days in the week in June. Between now and June, you've got Elder Scrolls Online event at the end of January. You've got State of Play, which is meant to be happening in February. You've got the DICE Summit at the end of February. You've got the Elden Ring release at the end of February. You've got the Game Developer Conference at March. You've got Star Wars Day on the 4th of May. Then you've got the Star Wars Celebration thing, so there's probably going to be stuff there at the end of May. You've got the Kingdom Hearts 20th Anniversary event, Afro, which I'm sure you'll love, in the spring. There's a Final Fantasy trailers information there. And then you've got Summer Game Fest in June, as well as potentially E3. Yeah. Like, you've got all those events, and that's not even for the rest of the year yet. It just makes you think, what's even going to be at E3 that you probably won't have been, you already been hyped for beforehand.
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, this is the problem now. It's just that all the developers have kind of adapted to the situation, you know, not really focusing on E3, not making it like they don't need to. Yeah. They really don't need to. Like, if they already have the gameplay, like, and the developers that made the game, why do they need to go to another party? You know, it doesn't make sense.
Well, that's with E3. That's what I understand the publisher's point of view, because when you go into an E3 event a few years ago, you're basically you're taking your games and you're revealing your games or your franchises or whatever, and you're going in literally direct competition with everyone else. Yeah. And so you've got that risk of it just getting lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, true.
It's one of those situations. It's like you must be thinking, you spent all this money putting this game together, you put all this money for your trailer and your reveal. Yeah. But then, and you might think it's really sick, but then some random surprise announcement comes on the same day or a day later, and then your one is just buried under it. Yeah. And you're just like, well, that was a waste of a reveal.
Yeah, no, you're right. Especially with the lies that we've seen in the past as well. Like, we can talk about all the Ubisoft ones that have basically not been the game that's been released. Anthem is also another famous one. Like, you're hyping up all of these big releases, and a lot of the times it's not the final product that comes out. So what is the point of having all of these game developers in one area if you're not really promoting this product you're gonna sell anyway? You know, it's just very shady business.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. It's been basically a meme at this point, especially with developers like Ubisoft and all that go through all this shtick of putting something out there for E3 just because it's E3. Yeah. And then because they've hyped up so much that they need to put out such a ridiculous cinematic trailer that is never going to see the light of day, or it's just going to be some fake gameplay stuff that it's just like, well, what was the point? Why get my hype up in the first place? Yep. You know, why get my hype up in the first place? It's difficult, especially, but then so the future of E3 with developers, I know Microsoft, they're in the process of buying Activision and Blizzard. They've got so many massive game publishers under their belt now. I know they've kept saying that they'll continue supporting E3, but Microsoft, I don't know. You're spending 80 billion, whatever, for all these franchises, another 7 billion for Bethesda as well. I feel like in the future, Microsoft are probably going to go down the Nintendo Direct route or the State of Play route. Like, why wouldn't they? I know they said they support them, but they're a $1 billion company, so don't take their word as gospel. Yeah. A few years in the future, I reckon they'll be leaving, and then it just wonders like what's going to be left at E3.
No, you're 100% right. I think the only advantage maybe is that, like, you could play the games at E3 like after, like if you're in. But again, that was only a select amount of people, and I'm sure those people are just going to get codes to play the game on their home PC anyway. You know.
Yeah, that's the thing with E3. They were really late to the party in terms of allowing the public to go to the event.
Yeah.
I think it was only in 2017 was the first time E3 allowed fan passes, and that was only 15,000 passes they allowed.
Not a lot.
It's not really a lot. They did say that apparently it was up to 25,000 for 2020, but obviously that got cancelled, and obviously last year was an online event. But I feel like the way E3 could sort of adapt for the future, rather than just being negative as Friday night, let's go positive here. Like, I do think E3 does have a place in the future in terms of connecting new audiences to indie developers.
Okay.
Because one thing about E3 is that it's not everyone talks about the reveals and the announcements, but everyone forgets that E3 is also a very good opportunity for networking.
Yeah.
You know, you get a lot of indie studios that are always there. And whether it's connecting with new journalists and getting their game publicised, or meeting with other developers from other companies, it's a very good opportunity for indie developers to network. And that's something that I hope doesn't get lost in the shuffle if E3 gets completely cancelled. So why not just expand it to a more public thing, and just allow it to be a showcase for these indie developers that haven't got the money or the infrastructure to have their own live stream events. You know, it could be there to support those sort of smaller developers.
Yeah, you're right. I think it just depends on, even though there are small developers, there's still developers that have a reputation to them. So like, I remember the Game Awards announced Hades, and Supergiant, the people that made it, are a very small studio. I think there's only like 30 people working on it. So I still think it's possible. Like, it's possible for the small developers to promote their games, especially if they have a reputation from games from before. I guess it's harder if you have a new IP and you don't really have any support. But I'm guessing if they have a partnership with Sony or with Microsoft or something like that, you know, I think the big companies now kind of know that indie developers, like, people want to play their games now. So regardless of that, this is why I don't think E3 is like, I don't want to say it's not relevant. It sounds really harsh, but you know, I just think
it's not relevant in its current. It's irrelevant in its current form. E3 is no longer where it was 10 or so years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think that it's got such good branding still behind it. It has that reputation of it's E3.
Yeah.
It can still be an event where gamers turn their heads and say, "Oh, that's pretty cool." I just think they need to figure out how they want to push their event. They need to make it more public access.
Yeah.
Because with these online streams of State of Play, it's all online, so you lose that element of the public connecting with, like, Sony, for example. It's usually online, and State of Play can usually sometimes just be journalists only. I think E3, if they started shifting away from journalism, gaming and stuff like that, and started really expanding the public passes and whatnot, I do think that'll be their best bet, and people will be excited to go to an E3. Like, it would be like going to Disneyland for gamers.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Let's go to E3.
Yeah, that is a very good idea.
And I think it's probably the only way that E3 can sort of survive in this climate. I think if they go online only for the future, they're toast. It's just going to become more and more relevant each year. They need to have a physical presence.
Yeah.
And I hope they can get it. I hope they can do it. I'm rooting for them.
You know what? Yeah, I'll be more optimistic. I'm rooting for them as well, because I think, to be honest, like what you said is a very good idea, and I think it will stop the developers doing really shady demos that look nothing like the real game as well.
No, exactly. So they'll be having, exactly. Shall we just put our CVs forward to run E3? I think we can smash it.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. We can get Fortnite to come down and build like a massive bus for us and all that. You know, I've done that before. We could have a blast of it. Let's just blow the budget on sets.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.